Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another awesome episode of the BIF Bites podcast. In this episode, Adam and Mike have a chance to sit down and talk about inherited IRAs. They talk about the rules around them and especially the distributions that need to be taken from them. They talk about what used to be called stretch IRAs and is now the 10-year distribution rule, and really get into the nitty-gritty. So, hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, here's Mike and Adam.
All right. Mike, it is great that we found this time to talk about your favorite CFP topic out there.
It's everybody's favorite CFP topic. Everybody. I'm not alone in this. I'm just the leader of the band.
Yeah. CFP boards too, right? So this is 18% of that CFP exam. It's the number one consistently. But yeah, retirement planning, and there, almost in succession, we had two tax releases and notices that just made the whole tax nerd community really happy lately. The first one was we had those inflation adjusted numbers delivered, which are always fun to see. And we're slowly wrapping our head around that. Jerry and I had the chance to talk about that on a different podcast episode. But we're here to look at a couple of topics that were included in a recent IRS notice. It was IRS Notice 2022-53. And it covered some RMD issues that were kind of top of mind to the IRS and the Treasury for years 2021 and 2022. But what a lot of the detail in that document was about inherited IRAs and going back to that stretch IRA, closure, the death of the stretch IRA back with the Secure Act. So there's a little nuance, Mike, that I know you mined out from that notice, and but I thought what we could do is just let's start with square one. Where were things with inherited IRAs prior to the Secure Act?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we get to talk about this because it comes up with students and clients. And what'd you say it was? 2022-53 was the notice or whatever. Which actually I think was like in February. But it seems to just like in the last 3 or 4 months, we've started talking about it. What does this really mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, just very, very quickly, in the past, it was really popular with IRAs and even 401k accounts to stretch out the payments from inherited accounts generationally, mm-hmm. and they were called stretch IRAs. And then the Secure Act happened in what was that, 2019?
Yep.
I think. And the Secure Act says, hey, not so fast. We don't like this stretch stuff, so we're going to change this. And if you're not one of the eligible designated beneficiaries, then you have to drain that inherited IRA within 10 years. And that short list of eligible designated that could still stretch would be the spouse, mm-hmm. of the decedent, a minor child of that decedent, a beneficiary who is chronically ill or disabled, and then other beneficiaries that were younger than the decedent, but not more than 10 years younger. Those are called by the IRS eligible designated. They can still stretch, right?
Yep.
But for everybody else, the IRS says, wait a minute, you're going to have to drain that thing that you've inherited within 10 years. And we all interpret that to mean that I don't have to do anything during those 10 years. I just have to have the thing emptied. Mm-hmm. We call it the 10-year drain. I just have to have it emptied by the end of the 10th year after the year of death of that original IRA owner. Okay, great. So now this publication comes out and says, but wait, we're going to change that if the IRA, if the account was already in RMD status. so the owner died on or after the required minimum distribution beginning date. It's going to work a little bit differently for beneficiaries. So that's where we're at now, and that's what this publication addresses. But that's your understanding too, right? That it needed to be in distribution status already. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, and then good points there just about how those beneficiaries work, because I feel like in a lot of the financial news, and you heard, all right, the death of the stretch IRA. Stretch IRA is no more, and now there's the 10-year drain. But it's so important that you know that there's this other category of those eligible designated beneficiaries where that's not the case, right?
And it encompasses a lot of the folks who are beneficiaries of IRAs and 401k accounts. I mean, particularly the spouse.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when this hit, it was like clients were freaking out and all. It was like, whoa, who's the beneficiary? Well, my spouse. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
They can still take it or treat it as their own, and not even start the distributions the next year. So just settle down. But yeah, there still continues to be confusion about, well, what's this other class? What's this eligible designated? And it's a heck of a lot of the beneficiaries, a very high percentage are eligible designated.
Sure.
And that's the focus of this clarification. And also to back up on that Secure Act piece is the beneficiaries of eligible designated beneficiaries. This is like a one and done type of exception.
Yeah.
They then would be subject to the 10-year drain.
Got it.
So that's always been that way since Secure Act. So what's changed now is that if the account was already in RMD requirement status, and they're not an eligible designated beneficiary, those non-eligible designated beneficiaries must take RMDs. Mm-hmm. For those first 9 years after starting in the year after the year of death of that IRA owner. That non-eligible designated beneficiary must take distributions for the first 9 years, mm-hmm. and then empty the thing by the 10th year.
Got it.
That's the big clarification that's in this publication, and it impacts again that thinking of, I don't have to do anything.
Sure.
You do. And then my understanding from this is for 2021 and 22, there's going to be some relief because technically, and I'm one of these, I inherited an IRA.
Yeah.
And should have, I guess, taken distribution in 2021 and 22. My understanding is there's going to be some relief, so we're not going to get hit with that 50% excise penalty. But then moving on in 2023, you're going to have to do that and then empty the thing by the 10th. But it's really in this big release, this really encompasses about a paragraph or two that clarifies that. But we get asked a lot about it, so we wanted to jump on here and say, hey, here's, we're looking at this publication and here's what's in there.
Yeah, all great stuff. And another thing that I think is worth noting is with minors, right? So how does this rule affect minors, right? Is it that they're in that eligible designated beneficiary bucket until age of majority?
That's right.
Okay, got it.
That's so. How long they're going to be able to wait depends on their age at the time of death. They are in the category, totally in the category, but only to age of majority. And then they start the 10-year drain piece with the annual distributions.
Got it.
For those first 9 years. So it's the 10-year clock on that doesn't start until they hit age of majority. And then the 10-year drain clock starts, but they too then would be required to make those annual distributions. So essentially, they get kicked out of the eligible designated beneficiary group, and they're treated as a non-eligible. But the 10-year clock starts at that time.
Got it. And another question that I've heard come up from planners in practice, also CFP students, is, well, what about your Roth? What if you get an inherited Roth IRA account, right? Because one of the big pluses for Roth IRAs is that you don't have that RMD requirement. But how does that apply here if it's inherited? What are the rules?
So the Roth IRA is interesting as it relates to these new clarified rules, because we know that required minimum distributions don't exist during the lifetime of the original Roth owner. And these new regulations having to make annual distributions for the first 9 years after the death of the owner and then drain it by the 10th year, because a Roth at the death of that original owner, because it was not in distribution status. So these new 9 years plus 10th year emptied by the 10th year, that's not going to apply to that first beneficiary of a Roth IRA. Because remember, we said earlier that these clarified regulations only apply when the IRA was in distribution phase, had already attained RMD status, which wouldn't be the case at the death of the original owner of the Roth.
So another point to clarify here is when we say IRA, right? I think there's a lot of people that immediately jump into traditional IRA, but we know that there are different types of IRA accounts. Do these rules apply also to inherited SEP accounts, SEP IRA accounts as well?
Yeah, they do. I mean, IRA is IRA, and it also applies to qualified plan accounts. So, the most notable being the 401k. So absolutely, yes, it applies across the board with those types of accounts.
Excellent. Yeah, this is going to help a lot of people, because I feel like even post Secure Act, I could remember attending a webinar on this, and it was a lot to take in, and I'm sure it's a lot for other people that are practicing out there and preparing for their CFP exam for sure. But it seems like there's a lot of detail. You just got to know the rules so that you can share the right stuff with the clients, because this is one of those where if you don't get it right, there could be some pretty hefty penalties, right?
Yeah, I mean, 50% is like the highest penalty out there as it relates to this kind of thing. So it's, so you want to know the rules on this. But the nice thing, one of the things I love about teaching retirement at BIF, and just retirement subject as well as income tax, there's always tons of primary source information to I'm not dependent on the internet.
Yeah.
To learn. I mean, I might get a good summary here or there, but I can always go to the source.
Yeah.
And find the way, just like this publication, that we looked at together. It's just like, okay, here's the source. And I can sort it out from there. So we, as an advisor, one doesn't have to guess on this or trust their buddy's opinion about it. It's just like, no, I can go find these documents myself and go to the source and then answer the client. So that is a nice thing about these complicated topics.
Yeah. And you've talked about, I know when we've talked in the past about sourcing and where are some of the best places that we can learn, both for our teaching, right, to help the financial planners out there most. I know atop your list, you've taught me several times in the past, go right to the code, go right to the Internal Revenue Code. And
I'll tell you a great, they're not paying me to say this, but I think National Underwriter is a great starting place too. I'm in my 42nd year in this, right? I have had on my desk for 41 years, let's say, National Underwriter's tax facts.
Yeah.
And so it's written in question format, so you can find, okay, I'm looking for this piece, but they always then cite the code.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to go first to tax facts, and then I'll go deeper into the code, and find the actual documents and things. But if you don't have tax facts as an advisor, I would seriously consider picking at least tax facts up.
Absolutely. And listeners, you can't see in the podcast format here, but Mike is on video and I see over his shoulder a stack of tax facts.
I've got the whole library going there. Tax facts on, well, all of them, all three volumes. And then also one of my favorite books that you actually turned me on to, Retirement Planning Guidebook by Wade Pfau. That is a great one if you're just moving into this arena in your practice and want to go deep on a lot of retirement topics. That's an excellent book. So those are things that live right on my desk.
Yeah.
And I'm in them a lot.
Yeah, that's great. And what's nice about the code is that if you're looking for something in the Internal Revenue Code, Cornell Legal Universe, it's their law school, Cornell Law School Online, has a completely free, it's public domain. It's all interactive. So if you type some tax concept into a Google search, it's very likely that one of your top results is going to be going directly to that Cornell legal library, where you can just scroll through, and everything is hyperlinked. There's even a glossary in there, and it's a really valuable way to learn this stuff, is to see it firsthand. Because a lot of I don't know if you feel this way, Mike, from my point of view, looking at some of these articles online, these secondary articles, I think that are mostly geared toward the mass markets that are out there. You lose a lot of the nuance and the important detail that are going to help you to make the connections better when it's in the form of just a short 3-paragraph article on the topic. I feel like it gets oversimplified, and I just feel like
I do, and you know, and I won't say it's the majority of the time, but occasionally something's just wrong in the article. It's like, whoa, wait. It doesn't work like that, author. So you just can't let that be the only source of trying to track additional information or learn something for the first time. And for, tax, retirement, and estate planning in particular, let the IRS, really guide. And a lot of their publications are excellently done.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think of that, but they are, and they've got some great examples in there and charts and things. So if you haven't given it a chance, at irs.gov, I would encourage you to, as a practitioner, but also as a CFP student. Hey, I want to know more about this, that would be my first stop.
Oh, 100%. What was the new podcast that we had talked about, Adam's Pub Crawl?
Yeah. I mean, we kid you a lot at BIF, about your love of the IRS publications. But, I'm a fan.
What? They're great. They have great examples. They're really well written. What can I say?
They really want to help you.
Yeah, it's true. I actually think that that's the gold in those publications. If you're a CFP student and or a practitioner, is in the examples where they're spelling out what this tax concept is, and then they're putting a person on it or a taxpayer on it, and they're putting numbers to it, and you could really see how that all comes together in their examples. And sometimes it goes way beyond the scope of what you need. I'm thinking of one in particular on federally declared disaster sites, where there's quite a bit of nuance in how different sites are treated tax-wise through the taxpayer's return. But there's also some really relevant step-by-step breakdowns that you'll see. A good example of that one is one on standard deductions and those bonus standard deductions, where they really walk you through. All right, here's someone that's 65 and older. Here's how they get tacked on that bonus standard deduction on their tax returns. Here's someone that's blind, legally blind. Here's how that works. Here's someone that's legally blind and 65 and over.
Yeah.
Here's a couple, both of whom are 65 and older. One of them is legally blind. So they really walk you through those situations. So I'm a big fan. I and I encourage you to as well if you want to deepen your tax knowledge, because that's always just good stuff to have.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're one of our CFP students studying with this. I don't know when this new twist will make its way into the exam, but it's fair game. It's fair game moving forward now, and so we need to be aware, and we absolutely are incorporating it into our materials now. The CFP board isn't always the fastest of getting new things into the exam, but it is fair game.
Yeah. And there's a great one sheet that you put together on this topic. I'd say it's IRS pub quality, Mike. It really breaks it down, talks about how the treatment goes, and gives you some great application questions. So,
there you go.
Yeah. All right. I think that was a nice, short, but super valuable little dose for our listeners out there. And as always, listeners, if you have questions for our BIF crew, please get in touch with us. Just drop by the BIF site, and you could reach us. You could also reach us at education-content at bostonifi.com. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what your thoughts are about the podcast. Love to hear if you had some ideas on topics. But especially when it comes to things like this, one of the benefits of working on this great team and talking about this stuff day in, day out is that we've compiled a nice library of resources that we call upon as we go about our work. And we're always happy to share that with you. But any parting thoughts just on this inherited IRA stuff, Mike, before we call it an episode?
Just be aware, because this is so real for so many of our listeners and advisors and students. They're in this every day with clients. So just be aware. And when in doubt, pub it out.
I like it. All right, Mike. Thanks for the time. Thanks for sharing this with the audience. And I'm sure we'll be talking some more retirement and tax again.
Steady on, friends.